Hello, and welcome to this video on the topic of the Masonic ritual as an educational tool. I want to begin by sharing a real-life example that highlights the power of the Masonic ritual as an educational tool. Before we proceed, subscribe to Masonic Audiobook Library. Recently, I met a young man who had just joined a Masonic lodge. He was excited about the prospect of learning more about Masonry and becoming part of a community that shared his values. However, he was also a bit nervous about the Masonic ritual, which he had heard was quite elaborate and complex. But as he went through the ritual, he began to understand its purpose and significance. He realized that the Masonic ritual was not just a series of words and gestures, but a deeply meaningful and symbolic way of imparting important lessons and values. And he came away from the experience feeling more connected to his fellow Masons and more committed to the principles of Masonry. This young man's experience is just one example of how the Masonic ritual can be an incredibly powerful educational tool. In this video, we will explore what the Masonic ritual is, why it is important, and how it can be used to teach important lessons and values. First, let's talk about what the Masonic ritual is. At its core, the Masonic ritual is a series of symbolic actions and words that are used to convey important lessons and values to Masons. These lessons and values are rooted in the principles of Freemasonry, such as Brotherhood, charity, and truth. The Masonic ritual is often divided into 3 degrees: the entered apprentice, the fellowcraft, and the master Mason. Each degree involves a different set of lessons and symbols, and each builds upon the lessons learned in the previous degree. The Masonic ritual is not just a set of memorized words and actions, but a deeply meaningful and symbolic experience. Through the ritual, Masons are encouraged to reflect on the meaning of the lessons they are learning and to apply those lessons to their lives outside of the lodge. Now that we've talked about what the Masonic ritual is, let's explore why it is important. One of the key reasons that the Masonic ritual is important is that it helps to create a sense of unity and brotherhood among Masons. Through the ritual, Masons are brought together in a shared experience that emphasizes the importance of working together, supporting each other, and striving for a common goal. This sense of unity and brotherhood extends beyond the walls of the lodge and into the broader community, where Masons are encouraged to live out the principles of Freemasonry in their daily lives. In addition to promoting unity and brotherhood, the Masonic ritual is also important because it helps to teach important lessons and values. The lessons and symbols of the ritual are designed to help Masons develop a deeper understanding of themselves, their place in the world, and their responsibilities to others. Through the ritual, Masons learn about the importance of charity, the value of hard work, and the necessity of self-improvement. They also learn about the history and traditions of Freemasonry, and how those traditions continue to shape the world today. Ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attention to a thought-provoking paper presented by past Grand Master Aubrey L. Burbank of Maine at the 7th Annual Northeast Conference on Masonic Education in Libraries in 1962. The paper calls for an appraisal of the place of the ritual in the program of education, and implies that its future is, in some measure at least, dependent upon its growth and development. Past and present I bring to you as words. The subject calls for an appraisal of the place of the ritual in the program of education, and implies that its future is, in some measure at least, dependent upon its growth and development, past and present. The inference, therefore, is that we begin at the beginning, and that while the intent is to think in terms of the speculative craft, we cannot detach ourselves from antiquity. We must necessarily begin with the operative guild which gave us birth. Masonic ritual, in the broadest sense, incorporates any and all ceremonies or rites from the opening of the lodge to its closing, including the conferring of degrees. To trace the beginning in either particular would be next to impossible, and it is not our intent to dwell in the past. We can be reasonably certain, however, that the first speculative lodges inherited their modes and customs from the operative guilds, and thus began their existence with a ritual sufficient for their needs. a ritual which probably provided for a ceremony of opening and closing and the administering of an oath of allegiance. This is understandable in view of the fact that medieval lodges opened with prayer, after which each workman had his daily labor assigned him and received the necessary instruction to complete the work in detail. We further learn that in or near that same period, an investiture with Masonic secrets, the building secrets, that is, was perhaps originally conferred in one of the abbey rooms near which the cathedral or other sacred edifice was being erected, until the superstructure had so far advanced as to cover the church crypt, and offered a safe asylum for the craft to congregate in, for the purpose of working the rites appurtenant to the several Masonic degrees. With the passing of time, the working tools of the operative craft became the symbols of the speculative, and in order that they might be understood and their significance properly related to the living of a life acceptable to God, and in a more perfect relationship with one another, it became necessary to devise a means of instruction which gave rise to ritualistic form. As speculative Masonry grew and spread to other parts of the Old World, and eventually to America, its ritual became further enriched with allegory and symbols to the point where it became an art in itself, but never losing its original purpose and intent, that of imparting knowledge to the initiate. There have been times in the history of the craft, however, when ritualism became the whole aim and end of Freemasonry. The effects of war, which made its mark upon society and life in general, found no exception in the Masonic fraternity. Lodges became likened to 6 mills in turning out masons or numbers, and the ritual suffered as a result, due partially to haste and partly to indifference and ineffectiveness on the part of undedicated officers. Then, too, in America, there has been a tendency to lengthen the ritual to accommodate the so-called ritualistic orators, and a further tendency to exploit the ritual for the amusement of the brethren at the sacrifice of the more important task of imparting knowledge. In more recent years, through various programs of candidate instruction, with the ritual as the foundation and basis of that instruction, there has been a growing tendency to restore the ritual to its proper place in the total program of Masonic education. Newly raised Masons today have at their disposal a greater understanding and appreciation of the historically and life-molding significance of the ritual, and the emphasis in rendition is gradually changing from the I-daughter and the T-crosser to the more meaningful rendition which causes men to think, to feel, and to act. This is not to condemn good ritualism. The preservation of ritual in its purest form is most important and imperative. Good ritualism is an honor. Poor ritualism is always pernicious. Good ritualism is worth the best efforts and highest aspirations of any master. Poor ritualism is unworthy of any master. Good ritualism is one of the great assets of the lodge and a potent advertising medium. Poor ritualism is an efficient hypnotic. However, our subject does not concern itself with ritualistic rendition, but rather the place of the ritual in an educational program. We have already indicated the tendency on the part of many grand jurisdictions to initiate a program of candidate instruction, and it is our opinion that such instruction cannot divorce itself from the ritual as the basis and foundation of that instruction. As for its place in the future, it is our feeling that there are unexplored resources in the symbolism and allegory of our ritual commensurate to, and of about equal magnitude with the space age in which we live, resources which will help mankind to better understand his place in the world as a creature of one almighty parent, and endowed with powers beyond his most imaginative dreams. If we are to make men, through our ritualistic teachings, better able to deal with the problems of life in their relations toward the supreme architect of the universe and their fellow man, which is our major task in the building of spiritual temples, then we must utilize the resources at hand. To say that we have exhausted this field would be preposterous and indicative of Masonic ignorance, because, as any one of you sufficiently versed in Masonry very well know, there is no end to the great well of information which lies buried in the antiquity of our order. The potential in space is limitless, so also is the potential in Masonic research. Some of these are so obvious that we hesitate to call them to your attention. Why send you here? to seek good that makes us men, and the love that makes us brothers. What can you do to discover myself and how to rule and use the strange powers within my nature, that the rough ashlar of youth might be wrought into the perfect ashlar of manhood? What do you most desire? To walk in the light, to know the truth, to live in the glory of an illumined world, to ascend the winding stair of knowledge, to enter the court of the temple of imagery, where the symbols of God hallow our mortal life. By worship right or be and EFI, by the right of a man to know the meaning of life, so brief at its longest, so broken at its best, and by the benefit of a need too deep for tears. Words, yes, but meaningful words that can be read into our symbolism and allegory, and one of the even more obvious teachings left unexplored in our ritual. The search for the lost word, the rite of destitution, the altar, the great lights and the lesser lights, the letter G, the Hiramic legend. We could go on and on, illustrating where we have but scratched the surface in our program of education. But behind, before, and underneath it all lies the ritual, so rich and abundant in life-building and soul-building resources as to defy the most searching and scholarly mind. What is the place of the ritual in any program of education? It is, as always, past, present, and future, the foundation stone upon which we not only build, but through the grace of an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God, we are so privileged as men and as Masons. If you enjoyed this video and want to support Masonic Audiobook Library, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated on our latest content. Liking this video and leaving a comment not only helps us understand what you like and want to see more of, but it also signals to the YouTube algorithm that our content is engaging and relevant, which can help us reach a wider audience. So please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video with your friends and family. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in our next video.